Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 140 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibby. Gibbs, what's going on, brother?
What's happening?
I'm doing great. I have had a good week so far.
Yeah.
I know it's not over, but I don't know. There's something about that, when things kind of go the way that you'd like for them to go.
Right.
As opposed to having those days where everything goes wrong. I haven't had any of those this week.
Oh, that's good.
That makes a big difference
Sure.
in my psyche.
It's got to be good.
It's all good. We have an episode out on TCAT right now.
We do.
We actually just got done recording it.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, we record these back to back, usually TCAT first.
We do.
And then True Crime All Time Unsolved. And I mentioned that we're at episode 140.
Yeah.
We're inching up on that 150, man. We got to come up with something good
Getting close.
for episode 150. But right now out on TCAT, we're talking about Paul Dennis Reed.
Yeah.
And this was an interesting case. This was a guy that, had a very long history of armed robbery, did stints in prison, then, like we've talked about with some others, made the decision that, okay, I'm getting out on parole.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to armed robbery, but this time
Stepping it up.
I'm going to step it up. I'm going to kill because I'm not going to take the chance that somebody can identify me and put me back in prison. So, this is also a case where Reed had what a lot of people thought of as a diminished capacity,
Right.
Mentally. And so you get into some of that talk with the death penalty and, should this guy have received the death penalty? Did he know what he was doing? But when you get into the murders and the planning and the execution, it's kind of hard to think that he didn't.
Well, and that PDR, man, he gets an interesting tag name through all this. Fast food killer.
Yeah, because he targeted fast food restaurants. Yeah, no doubt. But check it out. It's out there right now. We also just put out a Patreon episode, Gibbs, on a man named Wilford Berry Jr.
What a bad guy there.
Yeah, he was a bad guy. The first man to be executed in Ohio after the reinstatement of the death penalty. So if you're a Patreon member, that's out right now.
Yep.
Check it out. Video and audio separately. You can pick whichever one. If you're not a Patreon member, right now is a great time to sign up. Gibbs, I think that was episode 16.
I think it was.
If I'm not mistaken, we've done 16 Patreon only episodes.
Check them out. Check them all out.
The last however many have been video and audio. Before that, we didn't do video. It was just audio. But.
And people have asked me, if I join Patreon, can I go back and review all of them? Absolutely.
Absolutely. You can also check out some of the bloopers that we used to put out.
Yeah.
Where Gibby saying, I don't know, cousin or whatever it was. It was funny.
It was freaking hilarious, wasn't it?
All right. Speaking of Patreon and support, let's give some shout outs. We had Leah Nadeau.
Nadeo.
Arturo Palacios Uribe.
Hey, Uribe.
That's just a fun name to say.
That is a fun name.
Brenda.
What's up, Brenda?
Emily Gramaccioni.
Gramaccioni.
You either have way too many syllables
Yeah.
or letters that are not in the name.
Hey,
You're just adding letters, subtracting letters.
I'm just doing what I do.
We had Caitlin Murphy.
Hey, Caitlin.
James Burton.
What's up, James?
Lindsay Ungashik.
Ungashik.
Jessica Hadalin.
Hey, Hadalin.
Chris Goodrich.
What's up, Chris?
Marcus Chapa.
Chapa.
Gail Kusar.
Ooh, Kusa.
Daniel Pollitt.
Hey, Daniel.
Sarah Anise.
Hey, Sarah.
Angie Williams.
What's up, Angie?
Wonder N Girl.
Wondering girl.
Maddie Hellabush.
Ooh, Hella Bush.
Rebecca Camp.
Hey, Rebecca.
Daniel.
What's up, Daniel?
Taylor.
Hey, Taylor.
And last but not least, Tracy Shannon.
Hey, Tracy Shannon.
So we appreciate all that new support. And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs.
All right.
This week we selected Leanne Westvang.
Westvang.
Yeah, appreciate that. Been with us a long time. We appreciate all the Patreon support, new and continued. We had PayPal support as well. Ophelia Gallagher.
Ophelia.
Catherine Furlan.
What's up, Catherine?
Pauline Timms.
Hey, Pauline.
Jordan Anusowitz.
Ooh, hey, Jordan.
And Jamie Cross.
What's up, Jamie?
So big thanks there as well. All right, Gibbs, we're going to jump in. Are you ready to talk about this episode of True Crime All Time Unsolved?
Yeah, I'm set, man.
We're talking about the murder of Arpana Jinaga. This is out of Redmond, Washington, back in the year 2008.
Yeah. Up there near Seattle, man.
Yeah. Pacific Northwest, Seattle area. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat, some of these names may be a little hard for us to say.
Yeah.
We may get some wrong. And if we do, I apologize in advance. We tried to look some of these up. They were hard to find newscasters or really anybody saying some of these names.
Right.
And you know me, Gibbs, one of the things that I hate the most, because I get a lot of city names wrong.
You do.
That bugs me, but not to the degree it does if I say a victim's name wrong.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's at the top of my list. Try really hard to get some of that stuff right.
We're not trying to disrespect anybody.
No, not at all. It's just we're giving it our best shot. We usually can find somebody giving the correct pronunciation. Some of these, though, we had a hard time with.
We did.
But let's start out talking about the victim first. Arpana Jinaga. She was an incredible young woman, an immigrant from India. She came to America as a student, got her degree in computer engineering in 2005. Okay, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
She's doing great, but she doesn't stop there. She was pursuing a master's in science while living in the suburb of Seattle. We named it Redmond, Washington. So in the year 2008, she's working as a software engineer for a company called EMC in Bellevue. This was an extremely accomplished young woman, even at a very young age.
Yeah.
She was considered, a top young professional in her field. She was a martial arts student in Taekwondo.
Oh, we share the same thing.
She and my daughter do.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter is a black belt in Taekwondo.
She kicks my ass every time, too.
She could if I didn't stop her. I normally stop her.
Yeah.
Unless you kind of tick me off, and then I'll set her loose on you. But,
I'm glad you do stop her.
But yeah, she can hold her own. I'm very proud of that, as I'm sure Arpana's parents were as well. I think it's important to know how to defend yourself. And there's a lot of ways you can do it. There's a lot of different disciplines, training. If you believe in guns, okay, that's one thing. If you don't, there's hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
There's, all kinds of different ways. But the thing about Arpana was not only was she this, student of Taekwondo, she had a motorcycle and was active in her local motorcycle club. So, we shared some similarities there.
I just have this feeling she was always active. She was always doing something, right? I mean, she just wasn't sitting around. I know she was very active with a animal shelter.
Well, let's put it in perspective. This woman is 24 years old at the time that she's murdered. Listen to all the things that we've said about her. At the age of 24, she's done all of this already. You have to look at it and draw a couple of conclusions. Number one, she had to have been intelligent.
Sure.
She had to have been pretty driven.
Yeah.
Not only to get through school, but then to take on all these extracurricular activities. You don't do that if you're lazy.
No.
Because nobody's saying you have to do that. You're not making any money from taking Taekwondo. That's something that you're making a choice to do.
Sure, to better yourself.
That takes drive. That takes some, willingness to get off the couch and drive somewhere and take this class.
Right.
There's no doubt Arpana was liked and loved by a large number of people. You mentioned, Gibbs, that she volunteered at an animal shelter. It was a Siska animal shelter. But she also volunteered at her local fire department.
I mean, it just tells you again, this woman is driven.
And it didn't stop there. I mean, she volunteered at a few other things as well. Again, those are things that nobody's paying you to do. So you're doing it for what? For the love of animals?
Yeah.
For pride in your community, for the the satisfaction that you get from helping someone else out.
Yep.
She got her love for computer engineering from her dad. Her dad was a professor at a technological university in India. Arpana had a nickname amongst her friends, and it was used on social media. She was known as Cryptic Girl.
It's actually kind of a cool nickname.
It is. It's mysterious. It's kind of not dark, but mysterious, I guess is the better word.
I feel like it's going to be like the next Marvel
It could
character.
Be. Cryptic Girl.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. She was 24 years old in 2008. Her apartment building had this big party on Halloween night, October 31st, that included a large number of the units in the complex. People got dressed up, as you do on Halloween, and then they traveled from unit to unit, seeing people, meeting people, have a drink here, have a drink there.
Sounds like a good time.
It does. It sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like a great way to meet people that you don't know. And it sounds like a great way to see people that you already know in the building. Arpana was last seen alive around 3 a.m. the next morning, the morning after Halloween. So this would have been November 1st, when she walked from one apartment, which was on the first floor, back to her apartment, which was on the third floor. So somebody saw her, but that was the last time that she was seen. Later that morning, witnesses told investigators that they thought they heard some moaning coming from her apartment. Now, I think what they thought and what a lot of people would think is that, all right, you hear moaning.
Right.
This is somebody that's engaged in some type of sexual activity.
Sure.
They also said they heard some running water around 8 a.m. But I mentioned it. Nobody saw Arpana after this kind of time frame early on the first. Days go by. Nobody hears from her.
Which is strange for somebody so active with her job and community.
And all these different clubs and volunteering. Sure. It's also strange to her dad, right? He started to get extremely worried when a couple of days went by and his daughter hadn't checked in with him. And it wasn't just him. She hadn't contacted any other family members. So he reached out to a family friend. And this would be very tough, Gibbs, because he's halfway across the world in India. She's in Seattle. He's in India. He can't just pop in his car and drive across town to check on her.
It's got to be weird for him because they're in a different time zone. You know, when it's day here, it's night there. It's got to throw the whole dynamic off.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So what he ends up doing is reaching out to a family friend, and he asked the friend to go over to his daughter's apartment to check on her. What else is he going to do? Like I said, he can't do a pop-in. The friend headed over to her apartment and saw a neighbor that he knew. They started talking, and he and the neighbor headed up to her third floor apartment. They see right away, Gibbs, that it appeared to them that the door had been broken.
Yeah, they were alarmed, but they went ahead and stepped into the living room and didn't see anything. At that point, they decided to move into the bedroom. And this is when they saw her laying on the floor, naked.
And this is a rough scene. Arpana had been gagged with duct tape, and these individuals could tell right away she had been severely beaten. Her body was covered in some type of oil that authorities later figured out was motor oil.
Which is really strange.
It is.
And then on top of that, her hands were covered in that blue toilet bowl cleaner.
Which I believe stains skin
Yeah.
pretty badly, if I'm correct. Somehow it doesn't stain your toilet bowl, but it will stain your skin.
Yep.
They saw a shoestring near her body, and I think pretty easily they could tell that she had been strangled. Now, later it was determined that she had also been sexually assaulted. You and I cover a lot of crime scenes.
Yeah.
Duct tape, strangulation. We see that far too often. What we don't see are victims covered in motor oil.
Nope.
Whose hands appear to have been dunked in some type of blue toilet bowl cleaner. That's very odd.
It's very strange.
And it means something, right? Everything in a crime scene means something. The key is to figure out, what do those two things mean? So obviously the police are called and they get on the scene pretty quickly. They too notice that someone, they're assuming the suspect, the murderer, had not only poured this motor oil on Arpana, but had also poured it over a bunch of different items in her apartment.
Yeah, that definitely was very strange. I think even for them to see that.
The police noted that the bed linens, the blankets, comforters, all of that was pulled off of her bed, and it was put into her bathtub, soaked in water and bleach. Not too hard to figure out why someone would do that.
Nope.
Right? Hoping that the bleach would get rid of evidence. Why else would you do that?
Yeah.
As a killer.
They also noticed that the strip mattress had like dried bleach on it. So like someone must have poured bleach on it and it kind of crystallized. Had that dry, bleachy smell, bleachy dust to it.
They found another blanket that was not soaked in bleach. This one was set on fire. At least a section of it was burned. Again, why?
Yeah.
Because it had something on it that someone figured out the police could pull something from.
So I'll burn it and that will take care of that.
There were burn marks on the carpet. They theorized most likely from where this blanket had been burned. So I mentioned the bleach in the bathtub. You mentioned that there was dried bleach on the mattress. It was in the police report. This whole apartment smelled like bleach. A lot of bleach had been used. On top of all that, they found some linens from the apartment in the apartment complex dumpster. So I think we have to break some of this down because it's odd. It's different from things that we've covered before. I mean, this is something we've never heard of. Why was Arpana's body covered in motor oil?
Yeah, what are you trying to do with that? Are you trying to eliminate any DNA transfer, removal of DNA? I just don't really have a clear grasp of why they would do that.
No, I don't either. We've never heard of it before. Obviously, they thought that by doing that, they were fouling any chance that the authorities had of pulling something.
Right.
There was a reason. This wasn't just willy-nilly. Nobody just pours motor oil on a victim. There's a reason that they, whether it's true or not,
right?
There's a reason why they thought they should do that.
I kind of get the toilet bowl cleaner. I think they probably thought by putting that on her hands that it would eat away any DNA, anything that got underneath her nails.
Well, that, I think that is important, right? Because a lot of cases, and it doesn't take that much knowledge. People that watch CSI, that watch these NCIS or these type of shows, a lot of cases are solved using DNA that came from underneath a victim's fingernails.
Yeah, so if you soak her hands in that, maybe they thought, well, that's one way that we can eliminate that possibility. I
do get that. I wonder why they thought toilet bowl cleaner rather than bleach when they had used so much bleach already.
Yeah, maybe they used all the bleach.
Oh,
maybe they're like, oh, hey, we forgot to get her fingers. Well, thank goodness here's some toilet bowl cleaner. Who knows why, right? I mean, I get why they soaked the bed linens and the bleachy water, why they wiped the mattress down with bleach. I mean, that all makes sense.
And the burning of the blanket.
Yeah, I mean,
part of the blanket. You know, it had to have all been around DNA. So outside of the hands, because you have the fingernails and that's a place where DNA tends to collect, whether it's skin cells or whatever, I think your mind probably immediately goes to DNA that would have resulted from a sexual assault.
Sure.
So we're talking about bodily fluids, semen in particular. That's the first thing I thought of, Gibbs, when we talked about burning part of the blanket, not the whole blanket.
Right.
Was that because semen got on a very specific part of the blanket? The killer saw it and thought this is the easiest way to get rid of it.
Yeah. That could be true for the little part of the carpet, you know? I mean, not knowing where the sexual assault took place, if it was more in one or two places, but that could be why they burnt the carpet, why they burnt the blanket. Who knows? But that seems feasible to me.
So like we said, brutal scene. But at the same time, Gibbs, I think you have to say that we're talking about a killer that went to great lengths to try to cover their tracks.
Yeah.
This wasn't a murder and sexual assault where the killer hurriedly ran out.
No.
They took their time.
Yeah.
And quite a bit of time probably to get all of this stuff done.
If you think about what the one witness said, or witnesses, that they heard what sounded like moaning, could have been, they thought maybe some sexual activity, and then they heard the water running. Well, maybe they heard the sexual assault, and then they heard the bathtub being filled up.
Yep.
And that's probably exactly what they heard.
I would say you're right on the money, but then you have to talk about Arpana's father. We mentioned it. He's all the way in India. He's worried to death, right? He doesn't know what's going on with his daughter, but he knows it's not good because she wouldn't go this long without making contact with the family. He got a call later that day. Now, he's in India, different time zone. It was said, Gibbs, that it was about 2 a.m. his time. He got a call from his friend, the person that he called to check on his daughter. And this is when he found out that she had been found dead in her apartment. The door was broken. And his friend tells him that the police are already out there. They're investigating the murder. This is an extremely rough call, Gibbs, for any parent to get, anyone, right? To get a call like this, basically informing you that your loved one has been murdered.
A call you never want to get.
No, I don't think anyone wants to get it, but I'm adding to it. Again, the fact that this guy is halfway around the world. He wants to be there.
Sure.
You know he does. Most people would jump in their car.
Yeah.
And race to wherever they had to go. He can't do that.
No.
He's got to make a plan. He's got to get plane tickets. It's a whole thing. But pretty quickly, he reached out to reporters in India. He told them that he got a call and it said that his daughter had been murdered. He added that we don't know how she was killed. We only came to know that she is no more. That's how he put it. We're in a state of shock. He also told reporters that he and his wife knew something was wrong because Arpana called them daily and they hadn't heard from her for days. And the last time they talked to her, she told them about the party.
Yeah.
That was going to occur on Halloween.
And I get that, man. I know you're in constant communication with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I know if you didn't hear from your kid one day.
Yeah. The one that I have in college.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the one that's still
Sure.
at home, I talk to every day.
But if one day went by with no communication,
Yeah.
you would be gone. You would be knocking on
And
her
it
door.
is stressful because ever since she's got to college, she's not great at picking up the phone
Yeah.
and calling us. What we get are texts, which I'm happy about.
Right.
And even those are sporadic, but they're daily.
Right.
So I feel good about that. But you're right. If I don't hear from her, at least something, I'm going immediately to the Find My iPhone app.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm
Where's
like,
she at?
Where's she at?
Yeah.
Now, normally it shows me that she's in her dorm and then I'm okay.
Right. But that's the bad part for him, right? He could have all that you have, the Find Me app and all that. But if he wanted to go physically check on her,
He can't do it. No. So let's get back to the police. We talked about the massive attempt by this perpetrator to destroy evidence. But even with that, the police were able to find some DNA. They found Arpana's neighbor's DNA on the motor oil container that they found in a trash bag in a dumpster near the apartment. This was detailed out in the court documents. When the oil in the container was tested, it did match the oil that was found on her body.
Pretty compelling.
It's not good for that neighbor.
No.
The neighbor was identified in the court documents as a man named Cameron Johnson. So I think right away, very, very quickly, Cameron Johnson became the primary suspect. The police got his phone records, and they showed that 2 calls were made from his phone to Arpana's phone at 3 a.m. in the morning on the day she died. The police also learned that this guy attempted to cross into Canada later that day, the day she was killed.
But the Canadian officials wouldn't let him come in. They made him turn around and go back.
That doesn't make you look good. Doesn't mean that you killed anybody. Just doesn't make you look good, right? When you're headed to Canada on the day that your neighbor is murdered.
Yeah.
After they find your fingerprints on the motor oil bottle.
Slightly suspicious.
But because the Canadian officials turned him away, police got to interview Cameron. He did admit to being at the party that night, but he told police that he went back to his apartment.
Now, he did admit that he thought she was attractive and that he kind of hoped they would hook up, but they never did, according to him.
Now, he told police that he went to sleep at midnight, but woke up around 3 a.m. to the sounds of Arpana moaning. But one thing that he never mentioned during his interview with police was the 3 a.m. phone calls. And they knew they happened because they had his phone records. So again, when you're talking about suspicion, police are going to look at that as suspicious. You're laying out your timeline for the night.
Right.
But for some reason, you're leaving out this one detail that we already know about. Why? So as he's finishing up his timeline, he says he heard these 3 a.m. sounds. He fell back asleep, didn't wake up till 10 a.m. That's when police hit him with the phone calls and said, hey, we got your phone records?
Yeah.
You want to explain these phone calls? And he said he didn't call her as far as he could remember.
What me?
Well, I think we have to talk about it. It's Halloween.
Yeah.
You're imbibing. Is it possible that you got so drunk, you made these calls, but you don't remember them?
Oh, absolutely. That can happen.
It could happen, but then you have so much clarity around some of the other parts of your timeline.
I think that's the problem, right?
Yes.
You can't say, I don't ever remember making those calls, but I do remember waking up and hearing her moaning in her room.
At 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I think things get blurry, because if you're drunk and you went home and went to sleep, you're not hearing anything. You're asleep. You wake up at 10 a.m. But the bottom line is, if you remember the 3 a.m. sounds, then you would remember the 3 a.m. phone call, I guess is what I want to make clear. That's my thinking, at least. You're either not remembering either one, or you're remembering both.
Right.
You're not remembering one, but not the other.
And I think it's a little strange that he hears like moaning at 3 a.m., but the other neighbor heard it more around 8 a.m. So why does he have a different timeline on that versus what the other neighbor heard?
It's quite a difference in timing, but Gibbs, this is the thing we don't know. And it's almost sickening to have to think about. We know there was a sexual assault.
Right.
We don't know how long that sexual assault lasted. We don't know how many times it occurred.
Very true.
Theoretically, it could have been 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And I hate to say that.
Right.
But it's possible.
It's very possible.
Then police hit him with the oil container, and he had no answer for that. He's basically said, you know what? I don't know. I have no clue why my DNA would be on this container of oil. But they don't stop, man. They got a lot of questions for this guy because he's done some things that they found suspicious. Police asked him about why he tried to get into Canada the day that she was murdered. And he told them that, you know what? I just wanted to take a drive that day. And that's where I ended up.
Just out for a cruise.
It's an answer, it's not going to be an answer that's going to satisfy the police, right? It's an answer. It's just not a great one, because the other thing that police had was a computer printout that this guy Cameron had printed out on November 1st. And it was the locations of a bunch of pawn shops in Canada.
And they found this in his car. That's a pretty strange thing to have in your car.
Well, couple that with the fact that you were just driving to Canada. Yeah, very strange. Supposedly on a cruise, just out driving, but yet, you know what? Let me take these locations of these different pawn shops in Canada.
Just in case.
Just in case. You know, I might be looking for an antique Raggedy Ann and Andy doll set. Maybe. I don't know what I'm looking for.
But what do you think he tells the police?
Probably the same thing he told them about why his DNA was on the oil container.
Exactly.
I have no idea.
I don't know how I got there.
I don't know. I don't know why I printed them out. I don't know why I put them in my car.
It's a very bizarre thing.
And you're not talking to a bunch of idiots. You're talking to trained professionals.
Right.
I mean, these guys are trained to read you, to read your body language. They can smell BS a mile away. This is what they do for a living. And to be honest with you, Gibbs, you really don't have to be trained on this one. I mean, if somebody just told you this, not having the training that some of these people do, you would think this is total bull.
Yeah.
If you printed it out and you put it in your car, you know why you did that. You didn't just pick up a bunch of papers and, then realize you had them in your car and say, I don't even know why I did that. That makes no sense. But here's the thing. And, I think a lot of people will probably have a problem with this. At the end of the day, police and prosecutors just didn't feel like either this guy was the killer, or more likely that they had enough evidence to move forward.
Right.
With charging him and, taking him before a grand jury. They just didn't feel like they had it. Now, to me, that's quite a bit of circumstantial evidence, but it is circumstantial evidence.
It is.
I mean, the DNA on the motor oil, I guess, is physical evidence, but what does it mean? That at some point he touched that bottle.
Right. Did he touch it before?
Yeah,
after?
It doesn't, I don't think it doesn't conclusively prove that he poured the motor oil on her body.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying you kind of have a circumstantial case, but hey, you and I have done a lot of cases.
Oh,
people have been taken to trial on less.
Absolutely.
And convicted.
Yes.
I'll say that.
Yes.
So while this investigation was going on, Arpana's family, they had another problem on their hands. First of all, their daughter's dead. That's devastating.
They're trying to mourn.
But they also wanted to get her remains back to India so that they could perform the proper religious ceremony. And they were having a heck of a time doing it. They had to get some pretty important and influential people involved to make this happen. There was a lot of red tape because there's a murder investigation going on.
Right.
The body is a big part of the evidence.
Sure.
So the police don't just release the body.
Right. They need
right
to
away.
do their due diligence, right?
And in some countries and in some religions, certain ceremonies have to be performed within a very specific amount of time.
Right.
I don't know what all the details are with her religion and her family's religion, but I am aware of that, right? There is a number of days where things have to be done.
Right.
So eventually they did get through some of this red tape. Her body was sent home to India.
And also in the research found out that it cost them $7,500 to get the body home.
Yeah, my assumption is it's expensive to transport a body that distance.
Yeah.
You're not buying a seat on an airplane. You're buying a freight passage or I don't know what you call it, but you're transporting something.
Right.
I imagine it costs more than just buying a single ticket from Seattle, Washington to India. But it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
But that wasn't the only issue they had. The family in India was renting a home, and the person that owned that home would not allow them to bring Arpana's body into the house for this ceremony. So they had to figure out another place to hold it. And they found a local community hall that would allow them to keep her body there while they prepared for the ceremony.
I just kind of feel for them, though, right? I mean,
it's a lot to go through.
Yeah. It just seems like the stress level would be pretty high.
All the while, you're in shock that your daughter was murdered.
Yeah.
You're mourning her, but you're fighting this person and this person to even try to carry out the ceremony for her.
I just know how stressful it was to do the ceremony with my dad.
Mm-hmm. And the funeral home probably took care of 98% of it.
Absolutely.
But that 2%
yeah,
was probably stressful as can be.
Yeah. So I just can't imagine being in this situation.
Yeah, very, very tough. So back in the United States, her local motorcycle club put together a memorial ride to honor her. And I guess the turnout was amazing.
Yeah, it was something. There was a lot of news articles about it, how amazing the turnout was. And I guess they raised some money as well for one of her favorite shelters and things like that. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, a lot of people give, motorcycle clubs a bad name. And there are some motorcycle clubs that are into some nefarious stuff.
Right.
But the majority of them, like again, 98% of them, they're just people that like to ride.
Yeah.
And they do raise money for charities and they look out for each other and stuff like that.
You do a lot with yours. Fergie and the Furries. It's a cool, it's a cool game.
But yeah, the turnout was huge and they cruised their motorcycles all around the area and in a way to honor her. But the police are working to solve this case.
They are.
And they got another DNA hit when they tested the shoestring or I think it was actually a lace for a boot. Maybe you call it a boot lace or whatever it was. It was what police believe was used to strangle her to death. So they got a hit on that. They also got a hit on the duct tape, and the DNA on both matched. They found the same DNA on Arpana's bathrobe, and the bathrobe was found in the same trash bag with the motor oil container.
So here we go. Things are getting a little turned up.
It seems like everything is falling into place, but the DNA hits they're getting don't come back to Cameron Johnson. They come back to another guy altogether. It's a guy by the name of Emmanuel Fair. So they bring Fair in for questioning. On August 18th, 2009, they ask him a ton of questions. So this guy's story was that he was invited to the party, even though he didn't even live in the complex. He said that night he met Cameron Johnson. So he said he met Cameron, the two hit it off. They shared a lot of the same interests. They liked the same music. And it was around midnight. The two went out to Cameron's car to listen to some music. They came back in after about 20 minutes. Police asked Cameron about this and he verified the story. Now, what Fair told police was that after this 20-minute music listening session, he never saw Cameron again. He didn't know him before, met him that night, never saw him again. Fair told police that the party was over at around 1 a.m. He grabbed some pizza from Arpana's apartment because apparently every unit in the complex had something, right? Some people may have had the beer, the wine. Arpana had a bunch of pizza, apparently. So this guy says he got some pizza and he went to a friend's apartment who lived in the complex and fell asleep. But police got Fair's phone records as well. And they confronted him with the fact that he made 22 calls after 1 a.m. And they specifically asked him about 3 of those calls that were made between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. that were placed to someone inside the complex. Fair's response was that, okay, yep, those 3 calls were to a woman that he met that night, but he didn't actually dial the numbers.
I think he's saying I butt dialed, I
Yeah,
rolled over
or-
on the phone.
right.
And
Just happen to roll over in your sleep and call the same person 3 times. But the police talked to this woman and she confirmed it. She said, okay, I got these calls, but they were from him, nobody on the line. So she assumed that he dialed them by accident. That is strange to me. Now, butt dialing is a real thing.
sure it is.
It needs to be stomped out, but
Yes.
it's hard.
Stop the butt dialing,
Yeah,
please.
it's hard to stop. My dad calls me 4 times a week, at least,
Yeah.
and says, oh, I didn't mean to call you. I say, then why did you call me? Well, I didn't mean to. And then I said, well, then don't stop calling me.
You're like, Dad, could you just say, hi, son, I love you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. Have a
Right.
good day.
No, because a lot of times, by the time I pick up, it's not even there.
Yeah.
Like he thinks if he hits the button fast enough, I won't know he's calling.
And then you're calling back because you're worried about
Yes.
something.
And then he says, oh, I didn't mean to call you.
Yeah.
So just don't hang up. Just tell me because I'm going to have to call you back anyway.
Yeah.
So we've detailed out police conversation with Cameron Johnson. Now we've detailed out the police conversation with Emmanuel Fair. Police felt that they didn't have enough to move forward with charging Cameron Johnson. But that's not going to be the same with Emmanuel Fair. They charged Emmanuel Fair on October 29th, 2009 with the first-degree murder of Arpana. In the charge, it was stated that Fair had committed premeditated murder. Along with sexual assault and burglary, there was also a special allegation of sexual motivation included. The state still didn't charge Cameron Johnson, but the prosecution did make some statements indicating that they believe Cameron might have assisted Fair in the murder. This is a strange case, Gibbs, all the way around. They indict this guy. They charge this guy in 2009. His trial doesn't start until February of 2017.
Long time.
That is a long time if you're not able to bond out and you have to sit in jail for 8 years awaiting trial. Now, we couldn't find whether or not he got out on bail or not, but either way, it's a long time to have that hanging over your head, longer if you're having to sit in jail. The way the prosecution went about this case was to suggest to the jury that Emmanuel Fair and Cameron Johnson worked together. They were essentially accomplices in the murder of Arpana. The thing is, Gibbs, they never charged Cameron Johnson. And there's a reason. They wanted him to testify against Emmanuel Fair. They needed one against the other, right? They needed one of them.
Sure.
To get the other. So what they did, and I don't know if I've ever heard of this. Maybe it's just because we've never done a case that involved this. They didn't give Cameron Johnson full immunity. What they did was give him immunity for the answers that he gave during his police interviews. But he had no immunity whatsoever for anything that he said during the trial.
Which is strange.
If you want somebody to roll over on the person that you believe is their accomplice, how are they going to do that when you're saying, okay, you could be held liable. We can come get you
Right.
for whatever you say at trial. Well, they're not going to implicate themselves.
Unless he had nothing to roll over, but they wanted him to be at that trial to say,
To make it look like.
here's his counterpart.
It's very strange. I don't know how else to say it.
He won't tell the story, but we're going to tell the story for him, what we think happened, so we can get that into your mindset.
Well, the prosecution did tell the jury about finding Cameron's DNA on the oil container. They talked about how he tried to flee to Canada. When Cameron took the stand and the defense started asking him questions, they're going to hammer him. But he answered very few of the questions. He invoked his right against self-incrimination because, like we said, there was very little he could say. He could not take a chance, Gibbs, on incriminating himself in any way because he was going to be prosecuted. He told the jurors about the interviews he had with police. That was the one thing he could really talk about because that's what he was granted immunity for.
I mean, he could tell them the obvious. Hey, I wasn't arrested for it.
Mhm.
I was never charged for it. I was never convicted for this. But they knew that. I mean, that's why he was sitting there.
Yeah, his interview recordings were played for the jury. They also played the interview recordings of Emmanuel Fair, but Fair didn't take the stand.
Probably a wise thing to do.
It usually is. But the prosecution just kept driving home that somehow, and I think that's a good word to use because I don't know that they were able to articulate how, but somehow these two were working together.
Yeah, I think they have like some evidence from Fair. They have some evidence from Cameron. And the only way they can make this work is somehow this team of two had to be together.
Mm-hmm.
If they could prove that they were together, that's how she was murdered. Separately, though, it doesn't work either way.
Well, very important would be the two pieces of evidence. One had Fair's DNA on it. The other had Cameron's DNA on it. They were both found in the same trash bag. How does that happen? As a prosecutor, you have to try to explain that.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing I keep thinking about. I don't think Cameron Johnson had anything on Emmanuel Fair. If he had, my feeling is that the prosecutors would have granted him full immunity and said, hey, tell what you know on the stand, roll over on this guy. My thought is he told him he didn't know.
Yeah.
So there was no reason to give him immunity because he wasn't going to say anything that was going to incriminate himself. So as they went through their theory, these two guys were together at the party. I mentioned it. Both had their DNA on different items found in the same trash bag. Both guys were making calls early that morning. They talked about the fact that they listened to music together. They even had records of Cameron's logins to his music account.
Yep.
But the defense was quick to point out that there was no link between these two men besides the fact that they listened to some music for about 20 minutes earlier that night. The defense went on to make a really good point in my mind, which is the state's already come out and said that they believe Cameron had a hand in murdering Arpana.
Yeah.
So to them, that alone should be enough to raise reasonable doubt. So the jury got the case. I don't know exactly what kind of case they got, Gibbs, because this was kind of convoluted. It was a strange trial, to say the least. They deliberated, and on April 19th, 2017, they came back. They couldn't make a decision. They were hung. So the judge called a mistrial. So they go to a second trial in 2019. Mind you, this is 10 years after the murder. The prosecution calls Cameron Johnson to the stand. But again, he takes the Fifth Amendment to avoid saying anything that would incriminate him.
Smart on his part.
And why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He's got nothing to gain and everything to lose. In the second trial, it was ruled that the prosecutors couldn't make the same argument they made in the first trial. They couldn't say that Emmanuel Fair and Cameron Johnson killed Arpana together because the evidence just wasn't there to support it. The judge wouldn't allow it. I don't know how they got away with it in the first trial.
I don't either.
So in the end, the prosecution with their case, they just could not show the jury that Fair committed the murder either by himself, with somebody else, or at all.
So all these years, Cameron had to go through all this. Emmanuel had to go through all this. I mean, that's just a lot. It's life-changing, especially for Emmanuel, because he was the one that was sitting in jail most of the time.
No, Cameron Johnson just shows up at court.
Yeah.
He has never been charged with anything.
No, but he still had to be, his name still had to be taken through it.
It was muddied for sure. But in the end, Fair was acquitted in June 2019. Now, I've made the statement that the state couldn't prove it. I'm saying that based on the fact that Emmanuel Fair was acquitted. Gibbs, there was a lot of compelling evidence. We detailed it out.
Yeah.
There was quite a bit of DNA on items that it's really hard to explain why they would be there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and we say this a lot, DNA is not the end all be all.
No.
Just because your DNA is on something that is found at a crime scene, it doesn't prove that you committed a crime.
No.
It just proves that somehow your DNA got on there.
Yeah. Either you were there at one point. Now, remember, at this Halloween party, all these units were open for people to come and go.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I'm sure the defense argued transfer. I'm sure they argued all kinds of things to try to explain how their client's DNA could have, gotten on some of these items. At the end of the day, the jury just didn't think there was enough evidence to convict this guy. So both Fair and Johnson are free. Meanwhile, Arpana's murderer, whoever this person is,
right,
still out there. No one has been held responsible for her murder. Now, if Fair had something to do with it, if Johnson had something to do with it and they got away with it, that's horrible. If Fair didn't have anything to do with it and he essentially spent 10 years of his life with this hanging over his head, that's terrible as well.
Absolutely.
The problem is we don't know.
We don't. Nobody, right? Only people that know is the person that actually did the murder.
Yeah. Now, what I will say is he was acquitted.
Yes.
Which means what? No matter what, he can never be tried.
Nope. He's done.
Right? Double jeopardy prevents him from ever being tried for her murder.
Yeah.
He technically could come out right now and say, yeah, I did it.
I beat the system.
What are you going to do?
But
there have been people that have done that. It's stupid. I don't know why anybody would ever do that.
No. I think he's just wanting to get his life back.
I'm sure. But I think it will be interesting to see what happens with this case in the years to come. We know they have the DNA.
Right.
We know they know who the DNA belongs to. So this is not a question of, all of a sudden they're going to figure out who this mystery DNA belongs to. They already know. I think the interesting part is what else could come out above and beyond the DNA evidence that they already have.
Yeah, and like you said, he can't be tried again on murder, but if they thought they had a chance again, could they run him through on sexual assault?
I don't know what all was included. It was a little fuzzy in the research on exactly what charges they brought against him other than murder. We know murder. I mean, you could probably make a kidnapping. You could probably obviously you could make a sexual assault.
Sure.
So as often happened, Gibbs, while we're researching these unsolved cases, these little branches pop up.
Right.
Happens all the time.
It does.
And it happened here. There was an article in an Indian newspaper that talked about the fact that there was 6 young graduate students from Andhra Pradesh, India, one of those being Arpana Jinaga, that were killed in a 12-month period. So essentially from December 2007 to what, Gibbs, November 2008? December 2008?
Yeah.
That it's like a 12-month period.
Exactly.
You're talking about 6 young people that came to America to attend school, all came from this same area of India and were killed in a 12-month period. Now, we're not going to break down each and every case, but obviously this was a big deal back in that area of India.
If you were a parent and you had a child that had a job opportunity or a schooling opportunity in the U.S., you probably had to think a little hard about that. You just heard about these murders and you're sending your kid over here. You might be a little skeptical.
So I think the thinking back in India, at least on the part of the paper, was that, is this a coincidence?
Right.
6 of our young kids going over to, finish their graduate studies are killed in a 12-month period. Now, not all of these are thought to be murders. I think, Gibbs, there are some that police believe maybe at least one, maybe a suicide.
Right.
But still, that's a hell of a coincidence if it is a coincidence.
Yeah.
Now, if it's not a coincidence, what is it? Are we saying that there's someone out there? Because these didn't all happen in the same part of the country. They happened all over the country.
Well, you're in Louisiana, you're in Illinois,
Pennsylvania.
Washington.
So the flip side of that would be to say, okay, you have somebody that for whatever reason is targeting individuals from a very specific region in India.
Right.
And is hunting them down across the country.
It's very unique.
That would be pretty hard to believe as well, but we've seen some stuff that we never thought we'd see.
That is
so
true.
Nothing is out of the realm of possibility. But anyway, that's the case of Arpana Jinaga. You know, it is a heartbreaking case. She seemed like she had everything going for her, Gibbs. I think she did.
Yeah.
You know, and you talk about her family finding out that she's been murdered. They can't do anything, right? They have to spend a bunch of money to come over here to get her, just to get her back to perform their religious ceremonies. But at the end of the day, for me, it's the fact that somebody did this to her and they haven't paid for it.
No.
And I don't like that. And this is not a case where they didn't have any evidence. They have a lot of evidence. Now, does it prove conclusively that somebody killed her? The jury didn't think so.
No. Twice.
And that's the issue. But I think it's what makes this case so interesting. There is a ton of DNA evidence, a lot from one person, some from another, that somehow ends up in the same trash bag. It's hard to explain.
And I just think whoever went through all the effort to burn the stuff, to soak it in the bleach, why bag up some stuff and just take it down to the dumpster?
That had DNA on it.
Yeah. I mean, if you were so worried and
or you thought you were so smart, you were doing all this stuff, but then you're just going to throw out these two things. And it's not even like you're trying to hide it. You just put it in a trash bag and throw it in a dumpster.
Yeah. I mean, knowing that they would look in something like that. So why wouldn't you take it
police
further away? Yeah.
So it's a head scratcher. There's no doubt about it. But a lot of these unsolved are. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Yeah, let's hear them.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. It's Alicia Little from Rotterdam. I'm calling in to let you guys know that I love true crime all the time, True Crime Unsolved, and, of course, your new podcast. I wanted to say I was very sorry for the loss of your father, Gibby, and I am hoping that you're getting through it. I know it's tough with my mother being sick. I'm well aware of how hard this all to be for someone. I wanted to let you guys know that I look forward every week to your different episodes, also being a Patreon member to your extra episodes that we get. I just wanted to call in and say thank you for all of the time that you guys put in to all of the episodes considering real life. So thank you very much, and keep your own time ticking.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I really appreciate Alicia. She is an amazing supporter, whether it's Patreon, sometimes PayPal, word of mouth. Yeah. She's just telling everybody about the show.
Awesome.
So I definitely, again, a lot of voicemails have come in and I can only play some of them.
Right.
But
I appreciate them all.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to play Alicia. She's a huge supporter of the show.
Hey, y'all. This is my first time ever doing anything like this, calling a podcast. But my name is Beth. I'm calling from Florida. And yes, we do call them Florida rooms. And also, a little tidbit of information, Marion County, the city specifically is Ocala, are also well known for their breeding of horses. I'm a little behind because I have an hour drive, so I just had to get that out there to y'all. I hope y'all have a great week and a great day. Keep your own time ticking.
All right, Gibbs. So we appreciate that voicemail.
Yeah.
We're always behind on voicemails.
We are.
I think that come from the Marlene Warren episode?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was that right?
Yeah.
With the horses?
Yep.
In the sunroom? I don't know. You and I do so many cases, I do get confused.
The racetracks and all. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, this is Lori from Connecticut. I listen to your podcast all the time, And I'm just listening to the newest one this week on the Unsolved podcast. And it's not, I grew up in Rochester. It's not pronounced chili. She grew up in Chili. I know it's spelled like chili, but that's not how it's pronounced. Just thought I'd let you know. Keep it up. Keep your own time ticking. Bye.
So I don't know if I've already played any voicemails. Did I play some already?
You have.
Okay. I didn't get hammered over it. A lot of people corrected me, which is great.
Right.
I still don't get it.
I don't.
It's spelled like the chili you eat. Just call it chili. Don't call it chili. Now, I know it comes from wherever, but
I'm going to go up to Skyline Chili and say, I'd like to have some chili, please.
it's New York, man. New York is so tough with some of their names.
They are.
New York and Oklahoma. I'm almost scared to even tackle New York cases at this point.
You're not.
No, not really.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Elizabeth Bang from Orange County. I just tried to leave a voicemail, but my phone died. But anyways, I just wanted to call and let you guys know that I recently went to go look you guys up and match the name with the face. And Mike, you looked exactly like what I thought you would look like, the Gibby. I pictured you more of like Mr. Rogers type, like I genuinely pictured you like that. And when I saw what you actually look like, I don't know if disappointed was the right word, but definitely caught me by surprise. But just wanted to say I really love your guys' podcast. Keep doing what you're doing, and keep your own time ticking. Thanks. Bye.
I don't know if disappointed was the right word, but
I literally laughed out loud when I heard this, and I knew I was going to put it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because number one, for her to think that you would look like Mr. Rogers, I think it's because you try to come off with this super nice guy persona, which you really are not. I mean, you're a nice guy, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you are about as far from Mr. Rogers as can be. But the persona that you give off is a Mr. Rogers-like persona.
Hey, Fred was a badass. Outside of the camera,
he kicked your ass.
Yeah.
But what cracked me up about that was obviously the disappointed.
Yeah.
But what she didn't say is why.
Right.
Because she thought you would look like Fred. You don't.
I don't.
To me, you're better looking than Fred. So
yeah, what's up?
Why the disappointment?
What's up?
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We get that a lot, right? When people see our pictures, I actually don't get a lot of Ferg, you look exactly like what I thought. We get a lot of people saying, I thought you would be the other person.
Yes.
They see you, they hear my voice.
Yes, that's exactly
they see
right.
me, they hear your voice. We get that a lot, but
it's all right.
You know, we look like what we look like.
Change it up every now and then.
Two badass. No, I'm just kidding. We are who we are.
We are who we are.
All right, folks. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.